My name's Chris Addis, and here to talk a little bit about the mobile market as we see it, about our tools that we have in place, and talk a little bit, obviously, about the relationship we have with QualiTest as well. So looking at the market itself, and thanking ComScore for some of these slides that we put up here, is that mobile is, as we know, exploding, and the growth in mobile is just massive. If you look at the figures here, you're seeing over 45% growth across all sorts of retailers. Amazon obviously leading the way, but people like Home Retail Group and their aliens, where they were buying stuff over Christmas from everywhere, are starting to see massive growth in this area. Mobile is here, it's real, and people are transacting using it. So mobile payments is real. The trends, you look at this at the start of the year, last year, it was more around where do I find a store? Can I compare prices when I'm in that store? And researching pieces while I'm in that store. But purchasing is becoming incredibly important for mobile. And people are purchasing. If you have an iPhone, you're purchasing more than anyone else. And the stats show that. One of my children spent nearly £950 on in-app purchases, thanks to Apple. I got the money back, but Apple certainly know how to do mobile payments. Not particularly sort of conducive to being customer friendly, some of their mobile payments, but they certainly know how to do it. The other interesting trend, and actually this slide, although it's a ComScore slide, came from the BBC, and we were very lucky to be involved with the BBC last year around the testing of their Olympics applications, was that we're starting to see different trends in how mobile's used. And if you look through the day, luckily, between the hours of 12 and 7 a.m., things do drop off, which is nice to see. But through the day, during a week, you tend to see PCs being dominant. That's people using browsers and from work. And through the Olympics, the largest sort of customer usage through the Olympics was actually the Bradley Wiggins day when he won his gold medal. And that was 2.3 petabytes of streaming data. But what we're seeing, and a lot of figures are supporting this, is that once it gets to about 6 o'clock, PC usage, browser usage falls off, and it falls off dramatically. And tablets and mobiles take over. And in fact, what used to be the prime time for purchasing for retail, between about 9 and 10 o'clock in the morning and around lunchtime, has now shifted till 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the evening. And it's people either sat on their sofas, sat on, up in bed, and they're buying their tickets, they're buying, doing their shopping, and it's at that time of night. So that's the other thing you've got to look at, is that not just the mixture of web, mobile web, and tablets and mobile phones, but actually when they're being used. So as we see it, from a market perspective, from an OS perspective, Jim's right, there's multiple OSs, or there's multiple versions of OSs, but there's two, really. And it's Apple, iOS, and Android. There is a +1. We're pretty certain it's going to be Windows. The guys from Canada, I think, have blown it and are not going to get it back. But the big thing that we see is that, and every sort of market stat sort of supports this, is that the growth is just unprecedented. The growth we're going to see over the next 4 years, it's just going to accelerate. There's thousands and hundreds of thousands of apps out there. But the big challenge for some of these apps is that they're very short-lived. For example, we did all the testing for the London 2012 Olympics, both the BBC site and the Locock site. 2 months of testing for an application that had a lifetime of 3 weeks. And it's a one-time shot. It's got to work, or else people go away and they don't use it again. And the other interesting thing is that touch on mobile devices is just the start. There's so much coming. There's sort of the 3D navigation, as they call it, the sort of the Minority Report piece. That's here. You see Samsung advertising already. There's a very interesting advert out at the moment. I saw it yesterday morning for the new, slightly larger Fiat 500. It's got a little girl in the back of it, and if you see it, she's making things larger but she's doing that. How things have changed. Mobile world, make something larger, is that. And it's creeping into our society, our TV, and everything like that. We're seeing things like bendable phones. We're seeing hover gestures and voice coming in with things like Google Glass as well. So where are we at the moment? From our perspective, we see it as kind of, and this is my view on the world, is that we've just come through what I call mobile app 1.0. And funny enough, it's followed the same trend as the web. Get a presence. Go out there and get yourself an app as quickly as possible. I've got an app for that. It's kind of the strap line for most people. The problem is that no one had that resource in-house to build the apps. A few people are building their apps now, but most of that resource was outside. And it wasn't your traditional web developers and web development shops. It was kids of about 22 to 30 who knew how to develop on iOS and knew how to develop on Android. And it was all about getting speed to market. And companies hit challenges. These development shops were massively in over demand. So of course, people were rushing contracts with them. People were building SLAs around these apps with no quality assurance linked to it. And be that from a QA perspective, be that from a performance perspective. And the issue is it's damaging people's brands. And remember, 25% of all those apps out there are one-hit wonders. Example, this was the top 2 comments, and hopefully there's no one from Money Supermarket here today, but if there is, you might want to have a look at the Apple Store. But the first 2 comments, and you probably can't see this, is basically says, doesn't work, full stop. The other one, don't bother. This is an application that you can transact across. You can not just only get information, you can get quote details across this. And you can potentially transact across it. But the thing doesn't work. So where do you go? Compare the market? Go and see the meerkats? Instantly it's brand damage. So we're coming into a world where, and we're starting to see it because we're talking to a lot of CIOs, we're talking to a lot of head of mobile development. We're coming into a world where these apps are, first of all, they've got to work. Then they've got to scale, and then they've got to continue to perform once they're operational. Development is still being outsourced a lot of the time. But what people are doing is they're starting to say, we want to own the quality. We want to own the performance. And the old adage of the IBM building a center of excellence is coming back in. And people are saying, we want to own the testing part of this because this is directly related to my brand. If the thing doesn't work, it doesn't scale, it affects our bottom line. So some priorities, and this is from the World Test Report. Interesting thing here from a perspective of some of the categories that were deemed as important. I would have always seen this one being really high from a security perspective. But the most important thing that people were feeding back was that the thing's got to perform. You've got to be able to use it, and you've got to be able to use it wherever you are in the world, wherever you are in the country. Functionality, portability, all obvious stuff. The other piece, which was music to our ears, is that they don't have the right tools to test. Love hearing that, being a tools vendor. They don't have the devices. I have a stack of devices. I sell people device labs. But the next piece, great for QualiTest as well, is that the testing methodologies need to be updated. The testing experts need to be found. And I love the bottom one. Not enough time to test. There's always enough time to test if you have the right products. So a little bit on us. SOASTA, as a company, we've been going since 2006. We're all about test automation. We're all about performance testing. We were the first people to bring cloud-based performance testing to the market, focused around web and mobile applications. We have the largest testing platform. It spans 17 different cloud providers, 50 different countries. We ran a test for the London Olympics, which actually we simulated 1 billion users over an hour hitting their website, and not just hitting their website, but also hitting their mobile site at the same time for the results app. And that was coming in from 17 different countries. And it was about, it was about 2,500 servers we were running on it. And it was all about simulating real world. We've added things like test automation, and true test automation. I don't mean access to remote devices where you can run manual tests on. It's about actually putting a lab there, putting a continuous integration environment where we can pull the code directly out of your repositories, run it through a testing package, run 200 test cases overnight, and actually have all the results in the morning. It's about process compression. 400 customers around the world, and the analysts like us, and the press likes us, because we're building some of the most innovative technologies in the testing market. So our vision, I talked a little bit about this, is being able to integrate into the build environment to test from an automated perspective, mobile, being able to capture all the gestures, capture all the sort of the pinches, the zooms, the rotates, and do it in an automated way, which means that you don't, every time you move a login bar or a payment box, 5 pixels, it doesn't break the scripts in the testing environment. We then have the products to make sure that this thing will scale. And then finally, real user measurement products, which allows you to understand, okay, what is the experience people are having on your application when it's out there? There's a great line when we talked to one of the retailers, and they said, looking at your analytics, we saw that basically there was, although we had something like 25 business processes on our mobile application, 90% of customers use one. And actually, 90% of customers press one button on our mobile application. And the view was, why don't we make that one button as big as possible and in the middle of our application? Because if 90% of our customers are going to press one button, let's make it easy for them to press one button. So, as I mentioned, we have a SOASTA platform, a number of products, but those products, are software. They're tools, they're methodologies, but we need the people to do it. And it's the people in this room. And it's the end users, as well as the guys from QualiTest, who are the mobile experts, who are the test experts, who can put this together. We've got some interesting customers, been working on some great projects. We did all the testing for the Mars Curiosity landing, all the streaming that was done there, the London Olympics from a BBC, from a local perspective, Walmart's mobile application, Verizon, for the launch, when Verizon first got the launch of the iPhone 4, and AT&T for 3 years had made a mess of the actual launch and hadn't performance tested. Verizon came to us with a great story saying, we want to take 100,000 iPhone transactions in the first hour. We kind of said, you probably want to go a little bit higher than that. And we ended up taking them to a point where we replicated 250,000 transactions being taken in the first hour. When they ran the test, or when they launched it, they took 220,000 transactions in the first 10 minutes. But the most important thing, unlike the AT&T site, is that the site slowed, but they took all those transactions. It's so important to get this right. Our customers are some of the biggest customers in the world. We're very lucky to have the customers we do. They trust us for scaling their mobile applications. They trust us for making sure those mobile applications work. And with our new products, they're starting to trust us from a real user measurement perspective to say, on an ongoing basis, those tools will work. So finally, my final sort of slide is that, mobile apps, and I haven't talked a lot about mobile payments, but from my perspective, mobile payments is just a feature, piece of functionality that's coming with your mobile apps, is that it's got to work. It's a must. It's got to work from a brand perspective. It's got to scale because you want lots of people buying stuff with your mobile app. And it's got to continually work. And with QualiTest and ourselves, we think we've got an option for you. May not be the perfect option, may not fit right now, may fit in 6 months' time, but we believe that we've got one of the best options in the market.